Mark includes the story about Jesus walking across the sea and calming the storm, and John uses an even shorter version of the story. Luke omits it altogether. So the three gospel writers who tell the story agree that it followed immediately after the feeding of the 5,000, which we looked at last week, and that Jesus' calming of the storm was a miracle that was done for the disciples only, which is a very unusual occurrence in the New Testament. But only Matthew mentions Peter. And in today's story, it is Peter whom Jesus calls to walk with him on the water, and it is Peter who sinks. Over and over again, Peter is the disciple who takes risks, who makes great leaps of faith, and stumbles often as not, but who keeps brushing himself off and getting up to try again and again. At the beginning of our story, Peter is just one of the crowd. Weary after feeding the 5,000, Jesus sends his disciples ahead of him, and he goes off by himself up into the mountains to pray. And by nightfall, he's still at it. While out on the sea, his disciples have their hands full trying to steer their little boat right into a high wind and higher waves. They're all soaking wet, teeth chattering, hands blistered from their efforts, when Jesus comes to them around 3 a.m. No one can sleep, even if he would want to, and they're all watching the horizon, looking for land and measuring the distance they have come against the distance they have yet to go, when someone spots a shadowy figure walking toward them across the rolling water. "It's a ghost," someone cries, but the ghost speaks to them and says, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And his voice might have sounded strange to them, or maybe he was still too far away for them to see, because Peter doesn't trust this thing on the water. And scared to death, he says what the others hardly dared think. "Lord, if it is you, bid me come to you on the water." What a strange thing to say, don't you think? I mean, why not say instead, if you're doubting what this is out on the water, why not say instead, "Lord, if it's you, tell us what we had for dinner not too long ago." Or, "Lord, if it's you, make the storm stop right now." But none of those things is the test that Peter proposes. Instead, he says, "Lord, if it's you, bid me come to you on the water. Show me that what you can do, I can do, if you just tell me to do it. Take away my doubt. Make me have faith." So Jesus says, "Come." And Peter swings his legs over the side of the boat while the other disciples watch with their hearts in their throats. And Peter places his feet on the surface of the water, and picture it, the waves crashing against the side of the boat and the wind whipping his hair into his face. And Peter places his feet on top of the water and takes a huge trembling breath and stands. And then he starts walking across that heaving surface like the first steps he might have taken as a baby. And he's fine until a gust of wind almost topples him over, and he gets scared, and his feet sink into the waves, and he goes down like a stone. Now, even if you have never tried to walk on the water, you might know how he felt. This fear, like the time when my husband Paul made me cross over some slippery rocks over the raging creek that's below our house in Duluth, Keene Creek, which flows into Lake Superior. And in the spring thaw, it's always a raging creek. And this particular spring, he made me walk across those rocks with him. And I inched my way across those rocks, doing okay until I looked down at the rushing water below me and the rushing water above me, and I got scared, and so I sat down on those rocks, and I had to drag myself the rest of the way across the creek on the seat of my pants. Or earlier in my life, when I was a child in middle school and I had a small part in the middle school play. One line. That was it. And on opening night of this play, I totally forgot the one line that I was supposed to speak. Lord, save me, Peter cries out, and Jesus does, and he reaches out his hand, and he catches Peter, and he hauls him out of the cold water, and he drags him over to where the other disciples can pull him back into the boat. And then those words, "Oh, man of little faith, why did you doubt?" And those are the words that none of us want to hear spoken about us. And yet they're the same words that many of us ask ourselves every day. Why don't I have more faith? Why can't I trust God? Why can't I just let go and let God care for me? Why do I doubt? Why, when I believe that I am in God's hands and trust that those are good hands, but I lose my job and I can't find another, and the interviews go on, and my savings disappear, and my faith goes with them, and I begin to sink. Or I believe that God is present and active in the world, but terrible things keep happening, and I read the newspaper headlines, and it seems like this storm will never end. Or I believe in life after death with God, but then I get sick and the doctors say I have 6, maybe 9 months, and I pray for a miracle, but no miracle comes, and I pray for the reassuring voice of God, but no voice comes, and the waves creep up my legs and I begin to sink. Why do we doubt? Because we're afraid. Because the sea is so big and we are so small. Because the storm is so powerful and we are so easily sunk. Because life is so far beyond our control, no matter how many times we try to fool ourselves into thinking that we are in control. And we are so helpless in its grip. Why do we doubt? Because we're afraid. Even when we do have faith. Because we do have faith, you know. We do not have no faith. We have some faith. And like Peter, we have a little. And a little is better than nothing, even though there are times when it seems not enough to save us. Not enough faith. And like Peter, we have faith and we have doubt. And we try to walk with Jesus and we fail. We take a few steps and we sink. And we cry out, Lord, save me. And He does, giving us both His hands and His words. Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? In hearing those words, most of us count ourselves as failures. But I wonder, can you imagine this story turning out any other way than it did? What if Peter had not sunk? What if he had jumped out of the boat with complete confidence, landing with both feet flat on the water, smiling across the waves at Jesus and gliding towards Him without a moment's hesitation? And what if the other disciples had followed Peter out onto the water, and all of them with perfect faith had romped on the water while the storm raged and the wind beat the sails and lightning split the dark night above their heads? It would be a different story. Maybe even a better story. But it would not be a story about us. The truth about us is more complicated. The truth about us is that we obey and we fear. We walk and we sink. We believe and we doubt. But it's not like we do only one or the other. We do them both. Our faith and our doubt exist in us at the same time, holding us up and bearing us down, giving us courage and feeding our fears, supporting our weight on the wild seas of our lives and sinking us like stones. This is why we need Jesus. This is why we would not be caught dead in the water without him. Because our fears and our doubts may paralyze us, but they are also what make us cry out for Jesus' saving touch. So how can they be all bad? If we never sank, if we could walk on the water just fine by ourselves, we would not need a Savior. Our doubts, as scary as they are, remind us of who we are and whose we are, and who we need in our lives to save our lives. And when we sink, as Peter does, as we all do, Jesus reaches out and he catches us, responding first with grace and then with judgment. Why did you doubt? But never, ever, ever with rejection. He returns us to the boat, knowing full well that the only reason we are in the boat in the first place is because we believe, or we want to believe, and because we mean to follow him through all our doubt-filled days. And Jesus returns us to the boat, where our companions grab us by the scruff of our neck and haul us back aboard, and where we fall grateful and exhausted on the slippery deck. And all at once, the winds cease and the waves hush. And in that awesome silence of that night becoming day, all of us who are in the boat together worship him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Amen.